It says live. I'm just waiting on the LinkedIn side to confirm. Okay. Oh, there it is. Hi, May. How are you doing? Welcome to my podcast, Engineer Her Path.
Hi, Sandra. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on. I am looking forward to it.
Yeah, we've tried to make this happen over time and just, um, and the other thing I really liked about it was even though I asked you a lot, you had to make sure it was like the right time you felt to have
Mhm.
a podcast and to talk about your story and all that. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, I want to welcome May Anderson to the podcast. We've been acquainted for I think years now.
Mhm.
From the time I got on LinkedIn, I remember reading your content, your deep, thoughtful. I mean, basically going viral for, whatever nano influencers that we are, whatever influence we have. But I remember reading your stuff and how different it was and how thought provoking and just the different breadth of topics that you talk about that's very introspective and reflective. And we'll get into that later about, your LinkedIn content and why you do it and all that. But I'd love for you to just introduce yourself a little bit more to the audience.
Sure. Well, yeah, thank you again for having me on here. I'm really, really excited and touched. I know we have been in contact for years and we've talked about doing a podcast like this. And I wasn't ready because I was still engineering my path and I was working on trying to figure out where I was going and who I was talking to. And I remember even posting to LinkedIn and we talked about it and saying, well,
Mhm.
I post because I really want to share my thoughts and what I think about different things. But I wasn't
Yeah.
always clear on like who I wanted to influence. I just knew I had a lot of things I wanted to say. I'm a big storyteller. So
Yes.
so I like you, I'm an engineer. And I remember we connected on that and both being engineers. And I have been in the engineering field for over a decade, but
Mm.
last February, March, 2024, so a year and a half ago, I actually left my engineering job and now I work for MHI and a nonprofit, a science-based nonprofit, and I use the tagline, I'm an engineer turned educator, and I
Mm.
use stories and I talk a lot about motherhood and parenthood and compassionate leadership, and I use my storytelling to help bring what I call evidence-based hope to the world. So I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I like that. Evidence-based hope. I didn't know that you started using that. That's unique.
Yeah, it's recent. It's more of a recent development as I like wrote a few months ago I wrote a book called Dear Abigail and it's about just helping myself and my daughter be it's not published or anything, so I'm not marketing that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
it was just this idea that like we are so ambitious and we're working so hard and we are allowed to pivot, we're allowed to change, we're allowed to do what we feel like we need to do over time and we're enough throughout that whole journey. Like there's not a destination in mind to where we're finally enough. But as I wrote this book and I started evaluating the concepts within this book,
Mm.
I realized what I'm really talking about is evidence-based hope. Just this idea that like the world can be a better place. It can be beautiful where we currently sit, but it can be a beautiful a place, especially when we base those decisions off of evidence and we make changes in our personal
Mm.
lives and our systemic world and our financial lives based on
Yeah.
evidence on what we're doing. So that's kind
I
of
like that caveat because there's hope, but then there's sometimes delusional hope, right? There's
well,
some people that just it's kind of out there what they're hoping for, and it's just but yours is more about there's
yeah.
facts and there's a
I
path
mean,
and you can plan.
hope without evidence is kind of naive, and evidence without hope is kind of sterile. So I like
Mm.
pairing them because together I think it's really powerful and it's one of the concepts we use that I use as I lead the operations and education at the Molecular Hydrogen Institute. We talk about, we don't just talk about molecular hydrogen, which most people haven't heard of, but we talk
Mhm.
about the critical thinking skills that you need to make evidence-based decisions. And the reason you need those evidence-based decisions is because you have hope. If we didn't have hope for things, then why would we try to make the world a better place? Why would we try to,
Mm. I
practice
like
compassion?
that. I like
Yeah.
that. It kind of goes hand in hand, and they'll be unique. It'll draw certain people to you. But yeah, would you like to start off by telling us a little bit about the circumstances and you leaving your engineering role of over a decade? Because I'm sure, I know you talked about it before, how you'd hoped to work there the rest of your life. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually spent a long time mourning that transition because I loved, my job, and I loved the work that I did, and I saw a long-term career path there.
Mhm.
Um, I'm gonna back up just a little bit, before I got to the point where I decided to quit my job, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna back up to some of the things that allowed me to even be in that position. I had In 2020, I had my second daughter, and my husband and I made some really big decisions to just try to be more financially stable. And so we paid off, we were really intentional with the money that we were making, and we paid off a lot of our debt. And
Mm.
we were really careful to, in fact, for a time, we only had one car. For a while, we only had one car, and that worked for us. And so we were really careful with our finances. And I didn't know that doing that was going to give me the opportunity to be able to quit my job later. Hang on. I am so sorry. My energy battery just came on and I
Ah.
need to plug my laptop in. I apologize.
No,
Can
that's
I?
fine. That's fine. Go
Let me just
ahead.
grab it really quick.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. But yeah, that's the pros and cons of being live. Real stuff happens.
I've been in meetings all day with my camera on, and I thought my
Oh,
battery would last longer. Okay, I'm
um,
back. So sorry
that's
about
quite
that.
all right. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So you left off with talking about how you and your husband were made this intentional decision to get out of debt and clean up your finances, probably not even knowing that all this would go on. And yeah, continue.
Yeah, so then in 2023, I gave birth to my third child, and
Mm.
it was a magical, wonderful experience. And I gave birth in June, and I took the summer off from work, and I went back to work and was just planning on it being just stepping back into it. But I knew I wanted to breastfeed. I knew this was my last baby. Well, I didn't know it was my last baby, but I had a good hunch that it was going to be my last baby.
Okay.
And I knew I just wanted to enjoy every moment that I could with this baby. And so I went back to work, and I have a history of poor mental health postpartum.
Mm.
And so as I went back to work, and the jobs were going good, and work was going good, and the baby was going good, and everything was going good, and I was so happy, but at the same time I was like, I saw the writing on the wall. I saw like cracks start to break, and things start to come into play that made me nervous for the future of my mental health. And I was like, I don't want to go down that path again. And I know where this path leads. I don't want to do that. And
Mm.
so at the time, I had also been volunteering for MHI, for just on the side. My husband works a lot of nights and weekends, and so when my kids were in bed, sometimes I just hop on the laptop and work on a few things. And so I had been volunteering for a couple of years, and I remember I called Tyler, who was the executive director of MHI, and I called him, and I just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I see these cracks in the wall. Like, I know I'm okay for right now, but I don't know how long I'll be okay. And I just really want to focus on my family. And he just said, well, let's talk about it. Like, and so because I'd been volunteering, he talked to the board, and they offered me just a a consultant position to do the operations and education. And it was a significant pay cut and it was part time. And I was like, okay, this is going to work because then I
Mhm.
can work flexibly at home with my kids and it will be really good. And so I ended up quitting my job to focus on my family and taking quite a big pay cut, and just bringing in just what I needed to be able to focus on my needs and my family's needs. And so it was really quite interesting because I guess I left engineering and I had the anticipation like I'll work for MHI for a little bit and I'll get some of these systems in place and then I'll go back to engineering. And I had the intention. And maybe
Mhm.
one day I will. I'm not saying that the door is completely closed, but it was really interesting because I had no idea how things were going to unfold. I spent a lot of time mourning my identity as an engineer and mourning what the career that I thought I was going to have at this place. And um, but then beautiful things started to happen, and I really believe, like, I don't know
Mhm.
if it's I consider myself a spiritual person just because I believe when we act in alignment with who we are and with our needs and that things unfold very beautifully. And
Yeah.
so as I was going through, postpartum and trying to take care of my babies and it's been a year and a half and I look back now and I'm like, "Oh, that all had to happen the way it happened for me to be where I am now." And now I
Yeah.
run workshops for the Molecular Hydrogen Institute. I'm involved in my community. I just couldn't ask for my life to unfold better than it has right now, and it's not that I think it would have been bad had I stayed.
Yeah.
It's just different, and I'm really grateful for those opportunities, and I think when we look at our paths, we wanna make sure that we are doing what we feel like is best, and so when I look back, I think if I was still there at that place at engineering, I think I would be yearning to be living the life I'm living right now. So I'm just really grateful
Yeah.
to be where I am and to have those options, and I didn't know that this is where I was gonna be, but I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful. So
Yeah, yeah. And one thing, just so other people that don't read your content know, is that, yeah, one of the issues, or not, let's say just a primary issue, was the inflexibility about remote, right? And now you do have the ability to be at home much more and work around your own schedule. And yeah, if that hadn't had happened, who would have known? And we're kind of also mentioning, having a third baby, just starting to see, you can see the signs much earlier, right? You kind of
Mhm.
know when your mental health is declining. It's funny, I can even tell sometimes, just like when my house is getting too dirty and cluttered, right? When I have so many things on my nightstand, like that's not a good sign, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, how did you feel about making that big shift where now you're on site and now you're I don't know if you struggle with like discipline or focus, just being at home sometimes and being around
Yeah.
all the kids all the time. And yeah.
Well, actually, I had been remote actually for a while, and then, my office was only a few minutes away, and so it wasn't too big of a shift. Okay, sorry, that
Okay.
was confusing. I worked remotely as early as 2019. I started working
Oh,
remotely, and then, in 2021, I went back to the office. I took a different job. I went back to the office, and, it was part remote and part in the office, and that was really
okay.
nice. And honestly, I really am looking back at my career. There were things that happened that I didn't love, and I talk a lot about compassionate leadership because I feel like it's just so important for us to remember that we're all human beings living life the best we can. And I'm so grateful for the compassion that I was given when I was given it. And then there's other things that happened that I'm like, I wish there had been more compassion. But I look back now
Mm,
where I'm at and I see it so much differently than I did when it was raw and in the moment because I see that like my managers, the people that I worked with, they were doing the best they can and they really like this one company that I worked for as a consultant,
mhm.
they went out of their way to provide short-term disability for their new moms, and that was not a thing before I had come on. And so I
Oh,
had some disability when I had my second baby, and that was really, really nice and helpful, and I appreciate their compassion and understanding. And I think at the time, I think what gets me, and the reason I talk about compassionate leadership so much and my story so much, is because I've had it really good. I've had fairly reasonable managers, fairly compassionate employers, and
mhm.
it's still been so hard. It's still been so hard. And I say that out
Mm.
of so much love for my past self and for those managers and for all of us who are just trying to figure it out, because I'm kind of getting on a tangent here, but like
That's
when I left engineering, I didn't want to leave engineering. I just knew I needed something different, right? So
yes.
I look back at that time of life with so much compassion and empathy, because I feel like all of us are just trying to do our best. And I think when we approach life with compassion, it makes it a lot easier to understand that we all have different needs. We all have different situations. We all have different
Yeah.
desires. And if we can support each other, then I think beautiful things happen. So um, when I left engineering, I realized for a long time I mourned my identity as an engineer, but I've had to change the way I think about my identity. I didn't leave
Mhm.
engineering, I broadened it. I became more of who I am. I'm still
Oh,
an
yeah.
engineer, but I also have all these other things on my plate that make me who I am. So I try to say yes to opportunities that are in alignment with my values rather than with the titles that I am seeking. Does that make sense? So,
Right, right.
yeah.
And so many skills translate over that people don't realize. You get so
Mhm.
used to you're so pigeonholed, you have a title and a role. But I'm sure a lot of things that you learned as an engineer have carried over into all the other
Mhm.
things you have done. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. It's like you're just a person. You're becoming more of who you are in every
Mhm.
job and role. But are there any parts of it that like you do truly really miss, or maybe just being in office, certain things, or
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot that I miss actually. It was cool working for doing transportation projects. That's what I did. It was civil engineering, roadway
Mhm.
projects, and it was really cool to drive down the road and be like, "Oh, I worked on this project," like, and just to physically see the things that you were working on. I really miss my coworkers, and I
Mhm.
feel like when I run into them, it's always like I'm always so happy to see them, my old coworkers, and hear about their lives. And I miss like the camaraderie of being in the same room as these people that I had built long-term relationships with. And I have been appreciative of how many of them have supported me on this journey. I know that it has been really, I don't know, from the outside looking in, it probably has looked like um I'm just trying to find myself. And that's completely accurate, because I have just been trying to find where I belong and where I can make the most impact. And I feel like the reason I finally decided to do this podcast is because I feel like I have finally found that. Not that this is the final destination, but it's part of the journey that I'm ready to
Yeah.
start
We're
sharing,
all
right?
finding ourselves.
We're all
Yeah,
finding
yeah.
ourselves, and it's a
Yeah, you're
long-term journey.
right.
It's not a destination, right?
Yeah. I
So,
love that you can look back on it fondly and see the good and bad, and also
mhm,
see that people were doing the best they could, because there are
mhm,
times when people are so bitter about certain work situations, or they feel pushed out of companies or industries,
mhm.
or
Well,
nobody wants them.
and I do remember having a conversation with an old coworker, and I'm just like, "I'm just so mad that I quit, that I had to quit, and I miss it so much." And I was just like expressing a lot of frustration. And I remember they turned to me and they're like, "You're mad about a choice that you made." And I remember thinking like,
Mm.
"Yeah, actually I am." And it's not because I think the choice was the bad choice, but I feel like there's it's okay. It's okay that I had those emotions. It's okay that I felt stuck, that I felt like this was my only option. Even though it wasn't,
Mhm.
it felt like it at the time. And I think it's totally valid for me to have felt those feelings of anger and frustration and But I think to really practice what I preach, I have to apply compassion to those situations. I have to
Yeah.
understand that most people aren't trained how to welcome somebody back postpartum after having a baby. How what kind of pressures they're under, how to support them, and how to give them the support that they need. I think most people aren't trained on how to do that. And so I have to apply
Mm.
compassion to those situations.
But the fact that you had feelings about it just shows you cared. Because it's so funny when people think like you should just be very robotic and businesslike about, you left a job or situation, whether, and you're not blaming an entire company or boss or anything or industry, but it's just interesting when people are like, well, you don't have the right to feel anything about that because you chose to do that. But you can still feel sad about that. You can still miss coworkers. You could still miss
Mhm,
certain aspects of the work and all that. But
mhm.
yeah, that leads into that's a really great point. So, what kind of things do you think employers or companies could do about welcoming someone back postpartum? Even I've also noticed there are people taking longer career breaks. Like, I'll be honest, I just took like a 5-month career break. I'm about to start working
Yeah.
again, and there are people that are out of work even longer, maybe while they're raising all their kids, and then they enter the workforce later. And I kind of think engineering is one of the industries that's not very welcoming to people taking much time off.
Yeah, I do think it's
Yeah.
hard, like, and I think about this from, like, an employer's perspective because I have a few people that work for me, and I think about some of the situations that have happened. Like, one of them had, both their father-in-law and their father in the hospital at the same time, and so they needed
Uh,
time off, and we communicated about it, and I made it work and did what I could to support them. Um, but I think about this a lot because, when I became a mom, I was under the impression that it was, like, the most honorable thing I could do and that society wanted me to have babies. And so when I became a mom and returned to work 9 years ago, um, almost 10 years ago, it was really hard transition because I didn't feel the support that I thought I would have. I thought it would be an easy transition, back into the workforce, especially after time off. But
mhm,
then you're juggling so many other things, and you have so many other
mhm,
responsibilities, and it kind of changes. Having a baby changes your life, and so you kind of have to reprioritize. And so I think about that, and I think that there's a lot of companies think that all they can do is, well, we can't afford to offer paid leave, or we can't afford to have you take that much time off. But I think what companies can do that's completely free is just
mhm,
offer compassion and understanding and ask, what do you need? And how can we work as a team to support you? Because people people who feel supported, I think there's a statistic, I'm trying to remember what it was, but a vast majority of women after a career break or after returning to work postpartum do leave within 2 years of their career break. And
oh,
it's not always for the reasons that I think people think it is. I think often it's just because they feel under supported and they know they need to make it work in a different way, in a different in a different path, I guess. And so they feel forced to take a different opportunity or take a different career break. And I think, though, if employers could just take a step back and say, this person needs additional support, and I don't know what support they need, and they just asked, what do you need? I think that would
mhm,
go a really long ways. I think having clear expectations, good communication, just because somebody asks for maybe breaks, maybe that's what somebody needs. Maybe a postpartum mom says, I need to pump every 3 hours. Um, the employer can say, great, put it on your schedule, put it on your calendar, block that time off, and take those breaks. It doesn't mean that that person's not getting the work done that they said they were going to do. It doesn't mean that employer doesn't have expectations, but they need to be realistic on both sides, right? And so I feel like just having good communication,
mhm.
good empathy skills, asking people what they need, and meeting people where they are. I sorry, I have one more thing to say. Um, I posted about this the other day where just because everybody's getting the same thing doesn't mean everybody's needs are being met. We're all coming from different perspectives and different backgrounds and different needs, whether that's because we have different mental health challenges or we're postpartum or we took a career break, a 5-month career break. You know, we all have different
Yeah.
needs and stepping back into that. And my example was just because I have 3 children and I buy them all size 7 shoes of the exact same shoe brand doesn't mean I'm meeting each of their needs, even though I bought them the same thing, even though I gave them the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's not always all about equality. And it's interesting when you think about how, um, you know, it's always the medical concerns and needs. Like if you have a medical reason for a leave, if you have a surgery or something, but when you don't have something that's not so black and white, it's not a medical issue. It could just be, like, I don't know, maybe you want to take an extra 6 months off after a kid is born or something to
Mhm,
adjust. But if you don't have a medical reason, that's what I think workplaces have a hard time with. It's just, um, and I get where they're like, they're not going to pay you, but I also wonder if what if someone could financially support themselves throughout that time,
mhm.
and if they wouldn't get dinged so much professionally and in their job or career, how many more people would take some extra time off, right?
Well, and why do we have
Yeah.
to view it as a bad thing to take time off? Like, just because somebody has a career break and they're not taking in a salary doesn't mean they're not getting lived experiences and learning and growing, you know? Like, uh,
Yeah, they are kind of they tend to be viewed negatively, or
mhm,
you're or what people will do is they'll ask you, "What have you been doing?" You have to prove how productive you are. And it's funny, I even had some people on LinkedIn reach out about networking chats, and it was very much like, "Tell me what you've been doing in your time off." And I actually turned down some of those chats because I'm like, I don't have to. I'm not saying I'm not doing anything, but I don't have to prove that because I took time off I was
mhm,
extra productive in all these other ways, and I have to like give you a report card about it. Yeah.
mhm. Well, and I just think, like, and I think the taking time off, I think it'd be so cool if more companies could figure out how to offer like sabbaticals and
Yeah. Yeah.
life
Yeah.
has so many pressures. There's so many things that happen. When I was pregnant with my first, both my mother-in-law and father-in-law were in the hospital, and I was like this
Wow.
young, soon to be mom. And I remember just being like so overwhelmed, trying to figure out all the medical stuff and insurance and everything. And if I could financially afford it, it would have been nice to just take a little sabbatical towards the end of my pregnancy and just figure it all out, you know? And it's okay. I understand from a business perspective, like you can't just have people taking off for a year and like expecting their job back all the time.
Hmm.
But most people, I feel like if they get to that point, they're like, I need a sabbatical. Most people who ask for that time off are very if there's somebody you want to keep around, I feel like it's probably worth at least exploring how can we do this? How can we
Right.
make it work,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Taking the chance, and yeah, let's give them some time to figure some stuff out, maybe get their life together, health, whatever, mental health, and they
Mhm,
may return. But to keep pushing them to keep work
mhm,
sometimes, they're probably just going to quit, unfortunately, right? Because it's like
mhm,
it's a work or don't work situation, right, for
mhm,
them. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, and I think and I'm trying to be, like, compassionate about that as a from a business owner's standpoint because I know that, like, okay, let's say I hire somebody to fill this person in the sabbatical, and then the person from the sabbatical comes back, and now I have to, like, employ 2
Hmm.
people, and maybe I don't need that. I feel like there's ways around that, but I do understand where they're coming from, you know, to just wanna make good business decisions. You as a business owner or something are trying to make it work too. So that makes sense to me that you would consider those, like, bottom line profit margins and things like that, but in the end, like, if your employees are your best resources, then finding ways to support them is, I think, really important to at least have the discussion, right? So
Yeah, seeing them more as a person rather than
mhm.
just a resource
Right.
or,
Mhm.
bottom line dollar.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about I know, yeah, you talked a little about the teaching thing, molecular hydrogens, but you do more than that. So tell us about all the other things you've gotten into
Yeah,
your
it's a little
post
bit
engineering life.
It's a little bit crazy, actually, all the things that I'm juggling, and I'm so grateful that I get to juggle as many things as I do, because there's just no way I could do it with a traditional job, but,
Yeah.
um, back in this is the crazy thing. So when I went back to work with my third, 2 weeks before I was supposed to go back, my daycare provider actually she actually passed away from cancer. She lost her battle to cancer,
Oh
and
no.
so I
Oh.
remember just being, like, really emotional about her, like, she had been taking care of my kids for over 6 years, and it was I went back to
Oh.
work, and I'm trying to shuffle and, like, trying to figure out, like, what am I gonna do with childcare and all this stuff, and it was a little rough, but I remember when, she had first told us that she was fighting cancer, wanting to, buy her daycare and, like, hire her employees and, like, make it so that I could still take care of her and the daycare, and well, crazy thing happened in January of this year. My daycare that I fought tooth and nail to get into announced they were closing, and I was like, "Oh, no."
Oh.
What are we gonna do? And before I knew it, my husband was remodeling our basement and organizing things so that I could open an in-home daycare. So, actually, right now as we speak, I have kids asleep downstairs, and I have 2 staff people down there just taking care of all the children. I can go down there and see my kids
Wow.
whenever I want. I know childcare is really important for me, and I just want to be able to offer that to the community. I don't know if I told you that I was doing a daycare, but I have a
I knew
daycare.
you were doing it, but I didn't know the genesis of it.
Yeah, that was the
Just of all
genesis.
that.
That's kind of how it happened, and it was just like it's just kind of crazy because it's like for me, it doesn't seem like daycare engineer turned daycare owner. It doesn't sound like it would makes a lot of sense. But
Mhm.
when I look back and I go, you know what, like I started a nonprofit in 2017 to help working moms. I have been a working mom in the engineering field for over a decade, making what I feel like is a difference in our community is infrastructure. I recently started on my city's planning commission, and I now have a daycare in my basement. And all of these things, I'm like, what do they all have in common? And it all comes like into alignment with my values, like I was saying before. Like I really everything that I do because I want to do as much as I can to make a difference in this world. And I know that sounds a little cheesy and
Mm.
idealistic, but like
No.
the work that I do for MHI, like the potential that molecular hydrogen has, the critical thinking skills that we teach, everything that I do, I feel like is in alignment with making the world a better place. And the reason why is because I feel like my children and my friends' children and my children's friends all need to have hope for their future. And I'm like, I'm gonna bring it to them, and I'm gonna partner with people like Sandra and people who like have that pure
Yeah.
heart and like just want to make a difference in the world. I'm gonna partner with them, and I'm gonna do what I can, to
Oh,
make things
I
happen.
love that about the in-home daycare. I went through so many woes of I don't know how you had someone for 6 years. I feel like people go out of business in that industry a lot. So
Hmm.
I had like the daycare shuffle. I had someone quit one time when I was at work. She called me at work and she said she couldn't blend her smoothie. It was making my son upset. This is when he was like very little, like a baby. It's like, yeah, this is someone that probably should not have a daycare. I'm gonna be honest. Like, if you're
Yeah.
that upset, you can't make your smoothie. And oh, the woes of finding good,
Hmm.
consistent childcare. No, that's a really good service to a lot of people because I remember the struggles of that. I remember there were jobs where I worked shift hours or I worked extra hours, and people not being very understanding about that. And then, you'd find the one person that was understanding, and then she'd like go out of business or it's a really valuable service out there for a lot of people. So don't think that yeah, you're not equipped, and it's awesome that you're doing that because it means so much to people to have good, consistent childcare and
Hmm.
know your
Yeah.
children are taken care of.
Yeah, and just to be able to offer peace of mind to the different families who bring their kids here, it's just really a cool experience. I don't know how long we'll do it for because it's in my home. My youngest is 2 now, which is crazy to think about. So I'm committed to doing it for at least the next 3 years, and we'll see what it turns into from there. But like that's I feel like a long time to be able to offer peace of mind and give that service to the community. And I have, I think, really good help with the daycare. I didn't want to get caregiver fatigue. And
Mhm.
I feel like when we want to do great things, when we want to, whether we're building nonprofits or we're engineering some new
Mhm.
technologies, whatever it is we're doing, we don't do it alone. And recognizing what we're really good at and delegating other things and um, leading with our hearts first, I think that just makes a big difference in our
Yeah.
day-to-day lives.
It's
And we don't
probably
really
why you'll
feel
be successful, because I think the reasons why, when I observed why people would go out of business, because 'cause it'd be like one person and they get 10 kids, and they think it's so easy. They're
mhm,
like, "My kid's gonna play with the 10 like, you and 11
mhm,
kids?"
mhm,
It's not as easy as people think, and then you have kids, tearing up the house and things like that, and
mhm,
then, I had this one lady that, if I didn't pick up my kid by the time her husband got home, so she was always like trying to let me know. So obviously the husband was not as on board, right? With it,
mhm,
it's like I have to accommodate his schedule. So it's just people don't realize, and they think it's easy money, and I'm just gonna sit around all day and collect the money from
mhm,
these 10 kids. So I think you're smart about, even though you might be making less money doing that, but you're like,
mhm,
yeah, you don't want to get tired of it and burnt out and fatigued, and you're able to hire really good people to help out with that. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, and I want the flexibility to be able to take a podcast interview at noon on a random
Yeah.
Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, right? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
It was a holiday weekend, so forgive me.
Yeah.
No, and I feel like too, like the I think it's so important for me. One of my values is it's so important to do work that is meaningful to you. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
do things that are in alignment with what you want to be doing. And I I feel like when I say that, sometimes think people think that when I was engineering, I didn't feel that way, but I absolutely did. Like I loved my engineering jobs and the work that I did there. I felt like there was more I wanted to do on top of that. And what I'm realizing now is that I'm so grateful for the experience that I had as an engineer for that decade. But my story doesn't end there. Like we can learn and level up and grow
Yeah.
and pivot. We can have career pivots throughout our it's not linear. It doesn't have to be linear. And that's
Yeah.
really empowering to realize
Yeah.
that my circumstances right now mean that I have a daycare in my basement and I'm taking MHI meetings at 10 o'clock in the morning and um, tomorrow I have a planning commission meeting. And that's what my life looks like right now. But in 3 years, it could be different. In 5 years, it could be
Yeah.
different. And
But you have
that's
the
okay.
opportunity and the bandwidth to kind of
Mhm,
go where you want to go, and decide,
mhm,
and maybe not do certain things at a certain point. But yeah, it's interesting. I've also always had that same feedback from people too, though. People tend to think, you burned out of engineering, you don't like it, and it's like it's a chapter and it's a facet, right? And you're definitely grateful for all the gifts it gave you and how
mhm,
it helped show you who you are. But there's other facets of your personality. There's other interests, and
mhm.
it's when you can kind of open up and see what else is in life. I think that's really beautiful. It's not saying that one is bad or good, right? There's people that could be engineers their entire lives, right, and they're perfectly fine. But you have the chance to explore all these other things, and
Yeah.
I'm and it's cool seeing you do it, because you're a whole decade younger and you have time to explore around and see what else you want to go do in life, right?
Well, and I love how you phrase it as like chapters. Like these are chapters
Yes.
and seasons, and some people everybody's book looks different. Everybody's journey looks different. So if somebody wants to stay in engineering for 30, 40 years, like that's fine and I completely support you. I just think we shouldn't judge each other's books and chapters because they all look different and we should have that compassion for each other that we're just doing the best we can. I went to when I went to college, I remember by the time I graduated, I was like, "I'm so done with college." But there are parts of college that I miss, but I moved on from that chapter, and it's not that like
Oh, that is a
right?
really good analogy.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, you can look back, and but there are definitely days where I look back at my college days, but I don't miss being that broke. and like really scrounging for food. But there are parts of it that are really fun. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember studying all night with my friends and getting very creative about how to buy things
Uh-huh.
or I get access to the textbook. But I don't miss those days. But I do have some fondness of, yeah, it was fun. It was fun. But
Yeah, and I
that's,
think
yeah.
I think that's what it is about, is, like, looking back and finding those gifts that our memories give us, like, that's fun. Like, those fondness. It doesn't mean I wanna go back to college right now, like,
Yeah.
not I don't
Yeah.
no, I do not
Yeah.
want to take thermodynamics again. No, thank you.
Yeah. And so you're definitely in the thick of, so I'm more at the empty nest, my son's in adult phase. You have three younger children, so you're still in the very active parenting phase of your life. And I've seen you talking about parenting out loud. I had to Google it. Maybe I'm old. I don't know what that means. But I just wanted to hear, what do you think that means and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting you Googled it, because when I put it in there, I didn't Google it. I just took
Oh,
a meaning
really?
of what I just took a meaning of what I thought it meant, and how I perceive it. And when I see other people parent out loud, what I try to do is, I don't like, some people like to put their lives into different boxes and compartmentalize everything, and like, this is I'm now doing motherhood, and now I'm doing my workout, and now I'm doing my job.
Hmm.
And for me, I've just found that that doesn't work for me. I have always been really proud that I'm a mom. I've been really proud of my motherhood journey, even though there's been feelings of like, am I doing enough? Could I be enough? Like, could I be better? But I've never hidden that I'm a mother. I've never hidden that from any employer, and I've parented out loud. Like, it means, to me, it means that when I show up to a job interview or a project meeting, um or even a community event, I show up as all of me, every part of
Mm.
me, and that means my children and motherhood part come too. So I'm the person that says, "You want to see a picture of my 2-year-old?" And I pull out my pictures and start showing you. And of course, I try to read whether or not the person's interested in that, but I also try to
Hmm.
surround myself with people who appreciate that about me. Not everyone's going to appreciate that kind of approach on life, and that's okay. But
Yeah, I think
that's how I
sometimes
choose
it's the
to show up.
professionalism that people think that it's not always professional.
Mhm.
But what I think, why it's gotten such a bad rap sometimes in the workplace is when people use their kids as an excuse, honestly, right? So
Mhm.
they're like, this is why I can't do this, or this is why, I'm not good at this. I remember working with someone, it was funny. He had three kids and I have one, right? So he was always trying to compare, like he was busier because he had three kids versus like I
Mm.
only had one. I thought that was interesting. Um, and it was yeah, so I googled parenting out loud and I saw it's kind of a whole thing, and they're also kind of making the comparison like that men, when they do something, parenting, or oh, I'm with my kid because the wife went out of town, they're very vocal about it. But how have women, like been taught not to bring all that up, or you can't brag about it? Well, none of them are bragging, but you're talking about, it's just part of life. It's like what's going on in your life, right?
Yeah. Well, and I highly encourage everybody, I think, to parent out loud. We should like not try to hide parts of ourselves. And I think that's when real powerful work dynamics can be created, is when people can show up as their whole selves. And I talk about that just parenting, but I think it applies to other things too, like our mental health. Like, if you are neurodivergent, or you have
Hmm.
depression or anxiety, if you can just show up to work as your whole self and say, "Hey, I'm having a hard day," not as an excuse to not do your job, but to
Hmm.
give people understanding as to like maybe why you're just having a harder time that day, or just to give good communication and expectations as to like how you're going to show up that day. And I think about that sometimes with parenting is, some people might see it as an excuse as to like why I don't want to work in office, but I'm like, that's not necessarily true. Like, my kids are cared for. I have childcare. But when I can talk about um how I want to be home, like I want to be home when my kids get home from school, and that's
Hmm.
really important to me because I want to hear about their day. It takes 10 minutes. I get them a snack, I hear about their day, I get a snack, and then they're off to their next thing. And I think about how important that has been in my family's life, and I don't hide that I do that. And some people might think of that as an excuse, but for me, it's showing up completely as myself. Like, hey, this is the time that I need to spend with my kids. And I guess I bring this up because people will use anything as an excuse if they want to.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the way it gets misused by some people, yeah, I don't think yours is because you're setting a clear expectation. This is like the 10 minutes
Mhm,
that I got to tend to my kids. That's when they get home.
mhm,
But it's when people, it's like that victim or it's a
mhm,
excuse or kind of almost like sometimes people would want kudos for
mhm,
what they're doing. And,
mhm.
it's same like sometimes you see people, they're bragging about maybe they got an oil change on their car. It's like, well, everybody has to get the oil change on their It's not a
Right.
huge, big accomplishment. I mean, there's nothing wrong with they can talk about it, but it's not
Mhm.
like, like you almost feel like everybody has to maintain their car that they would like to drive,
Right.
right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point because everybody does have to get the oil changed in their car, right?
yeah.
And that's obviously like something that you need to do to keep your car running the way it needs to be running. At the same time, if somebody doesn't get their oil changed or they don't have the capacity to get their oil changed, they should ask for that help. They should be like, I don't know. I just think that's where the difference is just
Yeah.
knowing, are you using this as an excuse or like bragging rights or like to, I don't know, to get out of something, or are you showing up and allowing other people to also get their oil changed? Like, I think that's what I'm trying to say
Mhm.
is, what if there was somebody who couldn't get their oil changed and then they don't have the resources to get to that? I don't know. I just think about that sometimes. I'm kind of getting on a tangent, so I'll stop there.
Oh,
But
no, 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 that's all right. But no, no, I kind of see the difference. It's like showing all parts of yourself. This is like my life. I have kids that get home and I'm going to give them a snack. It's not meant to like, oh, take pity on me or you're
mhm,
bragging because
mhm.
but you're not hiding that. You're not like I have to disappear for 10 minutes.
Well,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Yeah.
and I also think it gives other people permission to show up the way that they want to show up too. Like I have some friends who've chosen not to have children, um, and I think that's great for them. Like I don't feel like, I try to be really careful because I don't want anyone to feel like because I parent out loud that I'm shaming anybody who doesn't have kids or making excuses
Oh,
because
yeah.
of things like that. But like when we allow people to show up how they are and like raise awareness for the thing, like maybe people don't know that people with cars need oil changes. That's a
Yeah, that's
different
true.
scenario, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't I feel like I'm a bridge builder. I really want to build bridges between communities and between people. And so when I parent out loud, one of the things I try to do really carefully is do it in a thoughtful way so that people who, even between mothers and fathers or non-parents and parents, like I don't want my content or things that I say to make people feel like they're excluded. And that's why I parent out
Mm,
loud, is because I want people who also may be in the thick of parenting and feel isolated. I want them to feel seen. And
mm,
so that to me is the difference, is I don't feel like we want people to judge or brag or be entitled because they have different things, but do
mhm.
know that you're not alone. No, you're not alone. I see you, you know?
Okay. Okay. I like that. I like that. I noticed you started adding that on your headline. Well, yeah, on the topic of LinkedIn, let's talk about like kind of your whatever you call it, content creator journey. How you started writing on there. I mean, you're really good at it.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
and I think you just started figuring it out, and you write stuff that really resonates and builds an audience. So, tell us about it.
Well, it's been, I mean, I'm a micro influencer. I don't feel like I have a huge following like some of the people that I know, but I found people like yourself, and there's a few other creators that have really inspired me to want to continue to putting out my work and write. And it simply just comes down to, I feel like some people don't have the desire to share their stories or share online,
Yeah.
and other
Mhm.
and other people do. And I'm one of those people who that I like to write, I like to share, and I think the more I do it, the better I'll get. And so one day I just decided that I didn't want to be quiet. I liken it to, if you're invited to a meeting and you have something to say, but you don't speak up, even though you have an invitation to that table,
Mhm.
then, that's on you. That's on you for not using your platform and your seat at the table to say what's on your mind. And I realize I have this platform on LinkedIn, and not everyone has to follow me. It's okay. But the people who are following me, I'm really grateful for, because I have a seat at the table, and I appreciate that they want to hear what I have to say, and that they, as I share these stories, and not just my stories, but other people's stories, as I share these stories, I think it connects us, and it
Mhm.
brings us together, and it brings in hope, and it brings in this idea that we are all in this together, and it bridges people together. Hopefully my content
Yeah.
brings people together. And so I'm just trying to use that example of like a seat at the table. Well, my LinkedIn profile is an opportunity for me to share stories and be heard. And not everyone wants to do that, and that's okay, but I do. And that's also okay. So,
Yeah. That's what I like about you because you're just so genuine. You're not really trying to sell or promote anything. You cover like a wide breadth of topics. And it's just, yeah, it's that energy. It's a different energy, right? Because you can read people's content. You could tell they're trying to get something very much out of it, whether it's validation, whether they're trying to sell you something, whether they're trying to promote something. But yours is just really pure, where it's like you're just sharing you and in your thoughts, right? And um, like you're talking about, it will attract like-minded people.
mhm,
People that don't have the same energy, that are not interested in your content, it's not going to attract them. But LinkedIn's so great for building a community. I hope this encourages people that are really hesitant about writing anything on LinkedIn, because it's not always about, like for instance, for you, your goal is not to get a job or to get noticed on LinkedIn. It's very obvious, right? So I think that people always think it's about that, and it's just for you, I mean, do you really feel like it's a way you can kind of express yourself, and you start finding your voice and start getting clarity on some of your thoughts and
mhm,
ideas? Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And I also feel like, um, as my LinkedIn journey has progressed, it has given me clarity on the things I really care about and what I want to talk about. But it's also given me an opportunity to connect with people like yourself. Like, we met on LinkedIn. Like, it's
Yeah.
given me opportunities to connect with people that I would not have connected with otherwise. And where I am in the thick of parenting, and I have young kids, and it's hard for me to leave home, and it's hard for me to, I live in rural Utah. It's hard for me to go to networking events. It's a really cool way for me to fill my bucket.
Yeah, I've also told people that for those of us that work from home or that are business owners or self-employed, it's kind of like your water cooler, your virtual water cooler. You go out there on LinkedIn and you're kind of like mixing and talking with people and sharing ideas, and it's hard to get that feeling when you're not at a physical workplace, right? Because
Mhm,
you would take little breaks and you go fill up your water or get some coffee, and you'd run into people and chat. And I feel like you could get on LinkedIn, and it's kind of like your virtual water cooler. All these ideas, people are sharing things. So yeah, that's one thing I really enjoy about yours, is that it's just so pure that you're just doing it and you don't really know what you'll get back. Because a lot
mhm,
of people will say, well, what will I get out of it if I do it?
mhm,
Right? And
mhm.
I don't think you ever went into it knowing what you'd get back. But what else do you feel you've gotten out of it, besides, of course, you get on a podcast and we met?
Yeah,
But
this has been
what other
really
kind of
cool.
benefits?
This has been a
Yeah.
really cool opportunity. But there's been other things. I mean, like, well, first of all, social media is not for everyone. LinkedIn's not for everyone. But if you are interested in it, if it's like something that you're like, yeah, I kind of want to post there, I'd encourage you to just start doing it. Like, there's no reason. Nobody needs to know why you're posting, or what you're trying to get out of it. Like,
Yeah.
you can just do it, because it's like, I don't need permission to go to the store. I don't need permission to go to the library. I don't need permission to go into different places. But you just do it. And a lot of, and so what I've gotten from it is a lot of clarity. I found support in some of the, because I openly share my journey. Actually made a post about how I was angry that I quit my job one time, and I got a lot of support.
Mhm.
And I've had people, former coworkers, reach out and say, yeah, we miss you. And it's been really nice to feel that connection with people that I would have otherwise lost contact with. Um, I actually did delete all of my social media and archive all my social media back in like 2021, 2020 for almost a year.
Mm.
And I needed to do that because I was using it in an unhealthy way and like a way of a form of comparison. I was like, oh, my journey, I'm not far enough on this journey, or I'm not this good of a mom, or like I get on Facebook and feel like I was like
Oh,
behind. But now,
yeah.
like, and so I guess that's another warning is like, if you spend time on social media, you need to know how to do it in a healthy way. You need to know what to watch for and what to just kind of inventory in your life so that you know how it's affecting you and that you're getting the benefits and not the disadvantages. Right.
That's a really good point to bring up because I'm same like you. I think in 2020 I nixed my Facebook. I think there was a time I deleted another old LinkedIn account, but there was just I couldn't stand getting on any social media. I didn't want to see people getting jobs that I wanted. I didn't want to see people in relationships that when I was single, like just all the FOMO and jealousy and realizing like, yeah, you're right. You have to be very cognizant and aware because you could spend 10 minutes scrolling and I felt sometimes it ruined my day almost. It was just like I
Mhm.
was in a negative mood the rest of the day. So you felt that too, and then how did you turn that around where you could be on LinkedIn and you feel now it's positive and it helps you and supportive and all that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I quit comparing my journey to other people's journey.
Mm,
Like,
okay.
and I also try to create content that I feel like builds bridges, that creates community, that is what I like. I try to make it okay for people to be wherever they are on their journey. And so I feel like the way I show up online has made a difference because before it was like when I posted before, I got a lot of anxiety because I'm like, oh, it has to resonate and it has to be perfect and it has to go viral or it has to do this or it has to like bring me this opportunity.
Oh, I
I had like
see.
all
Yeah.
these like every time I posted, I had to like this was back then, but like
Yeah.
now it feels like if I'm gonna post, sometimes I have like, I wonder how this will be perceived, or I wonder how somebody will take this. But I try to be really careful so that I'm telling a story in a way that unites people and helps people feel hope and helps people feel
Okay.
less alone. And so I feel like what I'm putting, the energy that I'm putting into it is different. And I also feel like the content that I see, I curate to what I want to see. And then we
Yeah.
have to be careful that we don't get like in an echo chamber. So we're only seeing things that confirm what we already
Yeah.
believe. But at the same time, we want to, we want to curate our lives and surround ourselves with people who
Ooh, I like
support us
that.
and are
That's
like
very
us. And
intentional.
yeah, and just be intentional with the energy that we're putting into it. And I also like put time limits on things. Like I try not to like just spend forever on
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah. And I know what you mean because before, when it's very outcome based, when you'd go back and check
Mhm,
for the likes and comments and
mhm,
you're getting a lot of validation off that, that's kind of that unhealthy way of using social media. Where
mhm.
sometimes, like, I mean, now sometimes I even do things where it's probably bad, like marketing or bad for the algorithm. Like I posted more than once yesterday. But it's like, I just don't care about some of those things anymore. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Because when you're
yeah.
trying to strategize it so much, like, oh, you got to program them out so you can get maximum impact, and you got to
Ah,
make a comment so other people will comment. It's like sometimes I do, sometimes I follow those rules, sometimes I
mhm,
don't. It's just like you're saying, it's the right people will resonate with it. Right people will be attracted to you instead of worrying
mhm,
about. It's kind of like people want the volume and number of followers, right? Versus
mhm,
like these are my people, right? Even
mhm.
if it's less, right? And they're really
Well,
engaged.
and think about you if you go to a networking event. If you're at an in-person event, right, and you are talking to someone and you guys are clicking and you're enjoying the conversation,
Mhm.
that's great. That's what you want. But if you're trying to force an outcome at a networking event, if you're like, I have to like meet somebody who has these criteria, if you're trying to force an outcome, like it's not going to feel genuine. It's not going to feel good. It's gonna like people are going to feel
Oh,
used. And
yes.
I just and then the other thing is you might be at a networking event and somebody says something that like maybe you're like, I don't agree with that. You can choose whether or not you talk to that person or whether you ignore the comment and move on to something else, right? Like, you can do the same thing with social media. If somebody says something on your post, or maybe you see something on someone else's post and you're like, I don't agree with that. You don't have to argue with them. You don't have to engage. You can if you want to, and it will bring what you're hoping to get. But like, that's kind of how I think of it, as especially living in a rural area, like, this is my chance to connect and network. And if I force something, it's not going to feel genuine. But if I just show up and connect with the people that I feel virtually connected
Hmm.
to, that's really powerful. And I think that's helped my social media journey.
Oh, but I love what you said about how you don't have to respond back to everything. It's so funny. Sometimes I get comments about my looks. Sometimes on the different social. It's just odd. I mean, it's okay. I mean, but it's just sometimes uh, I'll delete them. To be honest, it's just it really has nothing to do with the post. I'm not mad or angry with them, but I choose not to respond to it, or it
Hmm.
doesn't really add value. But we can do that on social media instead of like
Hmm.
stewing about it all day. Like, how
Oh, yeah.
dare that person say that? It's like,
Yeah.
no, that they people are going to be people, right? But it's like how
Hmm.
I choose to respond to that. I really like that because yeah, I had to really shift how I viewed social media to do anything on LinkedIn because I
Hmm.
felt like I always had such negative experiences on Facebook,
Hmm.
Instagram, all the other sites. I felt
Hmm.
like they were such time wasters, and then I would get in this very negative mindset and comparing myself with others. So I'm glad you could relate to that because I
Yeah.
think there are a
Well,
lot of people that deal with that.
and I remember feeling bad for, like, oh man, I'm spending too much time on social media. Or remember feeling bad for, like, I'd post and I'd be like, oh, I wonder what, like, those judgy people are gonna think about this. And what I realized is that
Mm.
I don't, like, yeah, I care what people think, but I don't really. I care about what the people I care about think. And
Oh, that's good.
when
Yeah.
I put something out there, when I post something, if I have trolls or haters, which I fortunately haven't experienced too much of that, um, they're free to unfollow me, and they're free. Like, I'm free to block them if it's not bringing the energy that I
Mm.
want. But really, I actually think the most surprising thing is you find how many people really do care about you and your content and what you have to say. So
Yeah. There's
yeah,
way more good than bad. It
yeah.
way far outweighs anything that, yeah, you're going to deal with scammers and trolls every once in a while, but I
Hmm.
think the good far outweighs it. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's what I love about, just to encourage all the people out there that think they have something to say,
Hmm.
like
Do
go
it.
say it on LinkedIn, and you never know what will come out of it. And I really feel it helps refine your thoughts and your ideas. And
Hmm.
even when people say, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to say, I have nothing to say, they're like, I'm just I'm a mom, and I'm an engineer, I'm boring, I have nothing to say. I swear there's something that people have in them that they want to say to other people, and why not put it out there? But yeah, what do you think is next for you in the future? I know you can't predict, right? It's just we're all evolving and figuring it out. But yeah, what do you think?
Well, thank you for asking that. I don't know. Um, I know that I know that I want to spend more time perfecting my message, learning how to get on podcasts. I feel like I've worked really hard to learn how to write what I want to say, but
Hmm.
being on a podcast, being on video, being doing workshops, doing
Oh, it's
these
different.
educational webinars and things like that, that for me is really fulfilling. And I feel like I can learn how to do that and learn how to show up online in video format as well. And I feel like that's just a good opportunity for me to further my messaging and further my the hope that I hope to spread into the world. And I
Hmm.
know I have big plans for myself. Like, I'm working on my Dear Abigail book, and I want to get it published eventually. And I have big plans for the Molecular Hydrogen Institute. We have built a little community of hydrogen enthusiasts, of people who are really excited about molecular hydrogen as a potential therapeutic gas. And
Hmm.
so I'm really excited to bring that awareness to the world and help people learn about what it can and can't do. It's still emerging in the research space, but it's really cool to be a part of an organization that cares about information and correcting misinformation and educating. And so it's really cool to go from like this engineering background, with math and science and problem solving, and then apply that to the education sector. And
Yeah.
we're doing some cool things with like a research database and just some cool projects in the works that I'm really excited about, and they don't line up perfectly linearly, but I don't think it needs to. And that's my whole point, is I think we're allowed to have non-linear progression in our
Yeah.
lives.
I wish people would be more open to there's so many different things that people can do if they kind of took these labels off themselves.
Mhm.
But yeah, on the topic of that, tell us a little bit more about your book because I don't even know that much about it. Yeah.
Well, what happened is I actually I have this friend and mentor, and she's a keynote speaker actually, and she's really incredible. Her name is Sydney Jakes, and I this is a long story, but I will just go speed it up. Introduced myself over a decade ago to her at my first engineering conference because I was like, "Oh, look, a successful woman engineer who's keynote speaking and doing workshops, and like that's so cool that she's doing all this." And I want to like I just saw a part of myself in her, and I wanted to get to know her. So I introduced myself and I said, "Will you be my mentor?" And she took that
Oh.
very seriously over the years. She's helped me through every career transition, every baby transition, just every single way. And back in April, I was really just like, oh, what am I doing? Like, I have so much anxiety, and I have so much, like, my mental health is like, I quit my job so that my mental health wouldn't decline. And here I am, my mental health is declining. What is happening? And what do I do about it? And I was just juggling so many things and holding myself to such high expectations. Well, Sydney calls me one day and invites me to go on this women in construction cruise. And I am just blown away and excited that she invited me to be her plus one.
Hmm.
And even though I had the daycare and all these things that I'm juggling and it wasn't necessarily the ideal timing, I was like, I'll figure it out. And so I said yes. And so I went on this cruise and I said to myself, okay, look, I'm going on this cruise. I'm going to be away from my husband and kids, and I'm going to have some time to myself to just connect with some really awesome people. And I thought to myself, I want to write. I want to write about what I need right now. So I said,
Hmm.
if my daughter were in my shoes right now with all of the things pulling at her that are pulling at me and all the things that she were juggling, and she were me right now, what would I want to tell her? What words of wisdom would I want her to know? And so I wrote and wrote and wrote to her as if she were me. And so it's like the book to
Mm.
myself, but it's really to my daughter. It's called Dear Abigail, and if it's kind of a series of love letters of like lessons that I would want her to believe in. And then so the last few months I've thought to myself, if I so badly would want her to believe that she's enough, that she's doing a good job, that she's a good mom, that she is, doesn't have to earn her worth. If I
Hmm.
wanted her to believe that, then why shouldn't I believe that? If I so badly would want her to believe that she's enough,
Mm.
why shouldn't I
Yeah,
believe I'm enough?
that's so
And
true.
and so the last few months have been really transformative for me, and I feel like it's changed how I've shown up online and how I've shown up in person and everything, because I finally am believing these messages, even though I've been like it's difficult when you've struggled with mental health for as long as I have. It's
Hmm.
difficult to rewire and um, relearn some of these
Yeah.
messaging. But the last few months, I've just really been leaning into it, and I've been practicing like what Sydney had taught me. Like, just I have the negative thought, and I just go, "No, not today," and it's really powerful. It's
Mm.
really powerful. So
Yeah.
this book is it's a really kind of a transformative journey of like how you go from like anxiety and struggling with your worth and struggling with like these feelings of not being enough to I am enough, and it's going to be okay. It's a really I've gotten a lot of really
Okay.
good feedback from it. So it's a really
I've not read
cool.
it. So you're writing it to your daughter as if she's an adult, right? So these
Mhm.
are things like maybe when she's an adult, she'll read it because obviously she's younger right now. She won't understand everything. But okay, I see. So these are kind of like your like life lessons that you wish she can know as an adult,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, just like a series of
Okay.
letters, love letters, and a journey, a transformative journey through it's not a quick fix book. It's just an empowering, like, "You're enough. This is
Oh.
gonna be this is your life. You get to live it," type of book.
Are you gonna let her read it one day?
I want her to. It actually starts out, I dedicated it to her, and it starts out just telling her, like, "I see you. I see you trying to get my attention. I see you trying to, play with me, and I'm over here just busy juggling a million things, and I hope you know that I'm sorry that I can't always give you everything that you need. I hope you know that doesn't mean you're not enough. You are. You're more than enough and you deserve this love." And it just kind of starts out with that thread of like, because, and this is a real thing that happened. Like, I work a lot. And so my daughter will come over to me and she's like, "Mom," and I'll be like, "Not right now, not right now." And I'll like
Mhm.
finish my work or I'll finish what I'm doing, the dishes or whatever. And I think it's a place that a lot of moms see themselves in, that like you just are juggling so much. You can't just sit down and read a book every single time they want to sit down and read a book. And so I saw one day her, I just was watching her and I realized that she's been kind of internalizing my busyness and my productiveness, and I don't want her to. I want her to know that like she's enough, even if mom
Mhm.
doesn't always have the time and attention that she wants, you know? So it kind of starts out with her as a 5-year-old, and
That's
then
really
she
good, I like that. I think there are even people as adults that don't understand that you don't know always need external validation all the time, right? If you
Mhm,
can't,
mhm,
be happy with yourself, and,
mhm,
it's interesting because yeah, you're still in the stages where she wants your attention so badly all the time, and I
mhm,
remember that. It's hard. It's because
mhm,
your kids wanna be around you all the time, and it's interesting as kids get older, they start learning that, you know well, I would say learning, but hopefully they're learning this, that they don't need their parents' attention. That they don't even want it all the time anymore.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I just remember, I don't know if everyone experiences, but I remember being a little girl and just being like, feeling like I just wanted to talk to my parents and they were busy. And like I had, you
Mm,
know, I just feel like I want my daughter to know that just because I'm busy doesn't mean she doesn't deserve time and attention and love, right? So it's kind
right.
of a
Yeah.
cool, I hope she'll read it when she's older and just kind of maybe understand where I've been coming from, and but also know just how much I love her, just how much I love her, you know?
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, yeah. That's so cool that you wrote that book. And probably also kind of writing to the younger version of yourself too, right?
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very healing. So and honestly, I wrote it with the intention of healing, and so if I never publish it, it's okay because it's already done what I set out for it to do.
Oh, see, I love that. Yeah, yeah. And it's more sometimes about the journey of doing it rather than like we're talking about having this outcome. Like it has to be
Mhm,
a bestseller, or I have to self-publish it, or I have to get people to buy it, or it's going to land me speaking engagements. It might never do that, right? Or it could.
mhm,
You don't know. But I think when people are so much tied to the outcome, that's what kind of ruins it. And you can kind of tell that spirit that's different when
mhm,
people are doing things for different reasons or intentions.
mhm.
But well, I don't want to take that much more of your time, but if people are interested in you, where can they find you? Where are you at?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place. I recently started an Instagram, but I have like a weird Instagram handle. It's
You
like
did?
yeah, it's like underscore a dot may dot zing underscore. It's like a play on
Oh,
May, amazing, but it's
okay.
like confusing. But my LinkedIn is just May Anderson, and I think it's forward slash May Anderson too. If you like went straight to the URL, and yeah,
Mhm.
I would love to connect with people who are watching. I really appreciate the time. This is my first podcast. Actually, I did a podcast like 4 years ago, but it was like a 20-minute episode and it was about totally something different. So this is like my first podcast as an engineer turned educator.
Yay!
I really appreciate the opportunity, especially because I have I haven't practiced it a lot, and so I love that you've
No.
given me the space to just share my story as authentically as I
No,
can.
I knew from our conversations you would do really well. Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
May's an amazing writer, so follow her on LinkedIn. But I'm curious because just because you brought it up, what are you gonna do on Instagram? I mean, I don't you don't say all your intentions or plans, but is it
It's
gonna be different? Because you can't write as much on there, so I'm
Yeah,
just
I've really
curious.
just I decided I loved writing. I still love writing. And I'm really good at
Yes.
sitting down at the keyboard and putting my thoughts out on paper. It's a lot harder to do it to the camera. And
Yes.
I would love the opportunity to do more workshops and podcasts and even potentially keynote speakers. I don't know what that looks like, but my thought is if I can get comfortable on camera, I have like 200 followers there. So it's nothing like,
Oh,
you
okay,
know,
okay.
but
So
it's
this is
just
to push you out on video
just
a
to
bit
push me
more.
out of my comfort zone, get comfortable
Okay.
being on video, get comfortable talking on camera, get comfortable sharing my story because I really believe when we share our stories, it unites us, it brings us together, it connects us, and it brings hope to the world. And I think that's really beautiful. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but I think it's really beautiful. And I think if I can show
Mm,
up online that way, and I don't want it to be this whole thing, I'm not making it this whole thing where it's like, I have to have 3 scheduled posts, and I have to have this, and I have to engage for 20 minutes every day or whatever. Like,
yeah.
I just want it to be part of my life, and I'm just there sharing what I'm up to. I make announcements there and on LinkedIn and about the things that I'm working on, the database and the book and all the things, the daycare. And so it's just a way for me to practice sharing my story, and I would love
Okay.
people to follow along and support it. So yeah, in
Oh,
different formats.
awesome. So
So
yeah, you'll do it. You're not just going to recycle stuff. It's a totally different platform. You're going to explore more visual and video.
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
that's that's going to be a cool journey. That'll be good. They'll push you out there where you can, relate to different people. And you'll probably attract an entirely different audience on there. That's will be interesting too.
Yeah, it'll just be
Have
interesting,
conversations.
and I think people should be encouraged to share their stories in whatever format they want to. Like, that's what I hope to do is just by showing up, that other people feel like they can show up, right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I hope everyone enjoyed it and go follow May wherever you can. And
Thank you.
yeah, thanks again.
Thank you so much, Sandra.